Good morning, everybody. I am Ann Christensen, a licensed prayer practitioner here at Light on the Mountains. And it's time to take a deep breath and go within. I know that there is one universal spirit, one infinite intelligence, one divine presence, one creative force. That force, that presence, that spirit is right here, right now, within this sanctuary, within this building, and within each one of us here and those online, and within everyone and everything everywhere. And I am so grateful for that, and I am so grateful for this beautiful morning, for the sunshine, a little bit cooler weather, and for all the goodness that is happening around us. And I give thanks for this, and I give thanks for Light on the Mountain Spiritual Center and our wonderful philosophy, and for each person who helps to make this place work, for all of our wonderful volunteers, for my fellow practitioners, for our leadership council, for Reverend John, his always perfect messages, and RL, who keeps us feeling wonderful with his gorgeous music. And I give thanks for this and for each and every one who is listening today. And together we say, and so it is. Now, I had to go to a little book called Creative Mind and Success by Ernest Holmes. Now, I found out that it was written in 1919, and he did go back and look at it again in 1957, but I don't think he changed it much. And after reading John's blog, I knew that there was a chapter in here called The Power of Words. Okay. Man's word spoken forth into creative mind is endowed with power of expression. By our words we are justified, and by our words we are condemned. That's a quote. Our word has the exact amount of power that we put into it. This does not mean power through effort or strain, but power through absolute conviction or faith. It is like a little messenger who knows that he is doing what he is doing and knows just how to do it. We speak into our words the intelligence which we are, and backed by that greater intelligence of the universal mind, our word becomes a law unto the thing for which it is spoken. This makes our word inseparable from absolute intelligence and power. Now, if any word has power, it must follow that all words have power. Some words may have a greater power than others, according to our conviction, but all words have some power. How careful, then, we should be what kind of words we are speaking. All this goes to prove that we really are one with the infinite mind, and that our words have the power of life within them. That the word is always with us and never far off. The word is within our own mouth. Every time we speak, we are using power. We are one in mind with the whole universe. We are all eternally united in the mind with real power. It is our own fault if we do not use this truth after we see it. We should feel ourselves surrounded by this mind, this great pulsating life, this all-seeing and all-knowing reality. When we do feel this near presence, this great power and life, when all we have to do is to speak forth into it, speak with all the positive conviction of the soul that has found its source, and above all else, never fear, but that it will be done unto us even as we have believed. There's a little section here, why belief is necessary. Always when we pray, we must believe. Our idea of prayer is not so much asking God for things as it is believing that we already have the things that we need. As we have said before, the already believing is necessary because all is mind, with a capital M. And until we have provided that full acceptance, we have not made a mold into which mind could pour itself and through which it could manifest. This positive belief is absolutely essential to real creative work. And if we do not at present have it, then we must develop it. All is law, and cause and effect obtain through all life. Mind is cause, and what we term matter or the visible is effect. As water will freeze into the form that is poured, so mind will solidify only into the forms that our thought takes. Thought is form. The individual provides the form. He never creates or even manifests, that is, of himself. There is something that does all this for him. His sole activity is the use of this power. This power is always at hand, ready to be spoken into, and at once ready to form the words into visible expression. But the mold that most of us provide is a very poor one, and we change it so quickly that it is more like a motion picture than anything else. Already we have the power. It is the gift of the Most High in its finite expression, but our ignorance of its use has caused us to create the wrong form, which in its turn has caused mind to produce the form which we have thought into it. From this law of cause and effect, we may never hope to escape, and while we may think of it as a hard thing at first, yet when we understand, we shall see it as absolute justice, without which there could be no real self-acting individual life at all. Because of our divine individuality, even God may have to wait our recognition of him and his laws. People will do well to remember this, and so to form their thought that they will be willing to receive what they send out. No thought of discouragement or disorder should ever be created, but only positive assurance, strong thoughts of success, of divine activity, the feeling that with God all things are possible, the belief that we are one with that great mind. These are the thoughts that make for success. The realization that we are dealing with one and not with two powers enables us to think with clearness. We are not troubled about competition or opposition or failure because there's nothing but life, and this life is continually giving to us all that we could ask for, wish or think into it. We can now see how essential it is that thought should be held one-pointed, that we should think always and only upon what we want, never letting our mind dwell on anything else. In this way, the Spirit works through us. And it is time now for the affirmation, which is in red on this insert, the affirmation for August. Let's read it together. I am in the greater flow of life as I elevate my consciousness to the frequency of love. And now, it's time for good music.
Thank you.
Thank you, RL. Good morning, everybody here. Good morning, everybody at home, and those watching later on in the week. We get there sooner or later, don't we? So I want to talk about intention today, but I want to tell you a little story first. So as some of you know, my mom left our household and our family when I was about 12. Younger sister 3 years younger, brother 3 years older, and just with my dad in the household. And a few months later, he hired a woman who we just took to as kind of a mom. And actually, it was really an undeclared adoption, I have to say. And she and her husband had never had kids for any number of reasons, and we were in need emotionally, and it was amazing. And it was something that, as we became adults, that it got deeper as opposed to just something that fulfilled kind of a need as we were young kids. In fact, many years later, her name was Ricky. When Ricky turned 70, and she had a very large family. And one of her sisters, I think I have 7 sisters, called me to invite me and my brother and sister to her surprise 70th birthday party. And she said, you have to be there. You are her kids. It was just acknowledged that we had declared ourselves family, and we kind of left my dad out of it, actually. And it was like, and it was, it was an amazing relationship, actually. But as in all families, and I'm sure with you as well, there can be what we call these running jokes kind of things that happen, that your private little jokes. And back to when we were kids and Ricky was becoming part of our life, of course, we just wanted her to be involved in everything. And of course, that was, again, it was awkward. She had her own family of birth and a very big family, but she would be involved in many things, and we were involved with many things with her family as kids, and sometimes they'd have to make sure my dad was along as well. It was all about this kind of new family we formed. But of course, she couldn't be a part of everything because you can't. And the running kind of joke that she said that she would begin the line, and my brother and sister and I would always finish the line together, and we would just all go, this is our running joke. She would say, well, can you come to Disneyland with us? I said, well, I can't promise, but I'll try. And in that was a sincere desire to, but it mostly is like, but we know it just really can't happen in this particular thing. So again, like I say, we'd say, oh, Ricky, can you do this? And she'd start the words, and we'd all say, you can't promise, but you'll try. And so it was like an 80% you wouldn't. But the reason why I'm telling this story and wanting to talk about intention is that when she said that line, as much desire as there was for us to be part of whatever was coming up, there was also acknowledgement that it most likely wouldn't. And in talking about intention, often that's kind of where we are. We make a statement of something we would like to take place, a state of consciousness to elevate towards, and we may spend a lot of time verbalizing that we would like a certain thing to take place or to heal or to move into our lives, but yet it's, to be honest, it's kind of like, I can't promise, but I'll try kind of energy. I mean, isn't that so? I mean, we want it to be so. Ricky wanted to go to Disneyland with us every time, but it was like, just couldn't, and we all acknowledged that. So that's why I want to talk about intention today, of how can we make our intentions deeper, more sincere? How can they be less, I'll promise, can't promise, but I'll try? How do we get to a point of being resolute, in a sense, as opposed to just throwing out, gee, here's an intention I would like, but to not just put it out there, but to live it and allow it to take place. And I'm not so much talking about getting stuff you want. Stuff is available all the time. Plenty of stuff. In fact, all of our garages are full of stuff that we don't want. Maybe if we just have a party where we go around to each other's garages and just switch stuff. Because obviously the stuff that we have we're bored with, but maybe someone else's stuff in their garage we're not quite so bored with. So stuff is available. That's not so much the thing that I'm worried about, getting stuff. It's about what is the substance and purpose of our lives that we want to firmly stand within and make a claim towards in lifting our consciousness and our life experience. But first of all, looking at intention, to realize that setting the intention is just starting the ball to roll a bit. Starting the ball to roll to get to a point of being firmly in your, what is true for you and what needs to come through towards you. Ernest Holmes writes, that I read this week, that there's kind of two energetic ways that we can go. And in that, you're either, in a sense, in the law of attraction, things to you, or the law of repelling things away, pushing them away from you. Now, I agree and I disagree with this. I don't think it's a binary system. I don't think it's either you're like, come on in, or stay out. Setting intention is taking the pathway from repelling to getting to where you need to go to attract. It's a journey. And in that, we learn many things. And we learn, in a sense, what is it that we do, that we believe, that, in a sense, pushes away that which we say that we would like to experience or have in our lives. And you think, well, that's crazy. Why would I push things away that I say that I want? You do. All of us do. All day long, we do it. And so what's in there? And so to look in there, first of all, without any kind of guilt or shame or, gee, my friend does this better than I do. It's a journey of consciousness, of growth, to see what is lurking in there that I just keep this at arm's length. Any number of things in there. My belief that I can't have it or shouldn't have it. My belief that I don't have the training to have it. The belief that, again, I'm not good enough to have it, or any number of things that we put it just at arm's length, and we think that if I complete a list of whatever it is, that I could then be open to having it in some way. So it is a journey, but it still is often conditional. You just kind of go through your own process. So when you seemingly set an intention, and it seems to be on the I can't promise but I try kind of energy, it's conditional, isn't it? I mean, when we say, I'm setting an intention to do this, how often do you absolutely 100% believe it or bought into it, good to go, gonna happen? I'm not when I start it that way. I mean, I just want to tell you. I don't want to tell you that I know how to do that and I do it successfully in each and every time. I just say, this is where we are. It's just us. Let's talk about it. Where we set those intentions where we're like kind of squishy. So how do we get not squishy in a sense? How do we get to what Ann was talking about, an honest and new thought, where we talk about, in a sense, standing firm in a greater truth and not saying there is something what we want, but actually declare and claim it as ours. And again, this is not just stuff in the garage. This is about deeper stuff. Again, plenty of stuff in our garage. And there is a verbiage that you probably heard. I know that Ann even talked about a little bit. Anyone in New Thought, particularly that are praying in public, that they will use. A word that is culturally very powerful, whether you realize it or not. So just think back when you've heard people in New Thought do a prayer verbally, they may say something along the line of, before they state an intention, say, I now speak my word of truth, that we experience peace at a heart level, let's say. So I speak my word of truth. Where did that come from? Any ideas? You don't have to answer me, it's rhetorical. Where did that come from? So if you go to the first couple lines of the book of John in the New Testament, it says, the Word was the beginning, and that very Word was with God, and God was that Word, referring to Genesis when the world was spoken into being. So again, it's not here to say the world was created out in 6 days or anything like that, but the way what this teaches is that your world is spoken into being each and every day, whether you realize it or not. That anytime you get an idea and say, that's possible for me, you have spoken that into being. Anytime you get an opportunity or say, why don't you do that? And you say, oh, I could never do that, you have spoken that truth into being. You have used the power of your word and intention. You didn't say, this is something that might happen or might not happen. You, with all your authority, said, I can do it, or you said, with all of your authority, you can't do it. We do this all the time. Again, on the can't category, how many times as a friend, or you hear on a TV, or you read in a newspaper of a opportunity or an activity that at first you go, I would love to do that, and then you say, but I never could because. You spoke that outcome into being right there with your full authority of your ability to create. You made it impossible in that moment for you to do. Not that it will always be impossible, but you spoke that option into being. Just like when we all, on the other hand, when something comes out of seemingly nowhere as a possibility and somehow you connect with it on a very deep level and something just resonates with you and you say, I'm going to do that. You have just spoken it into being, regardless whether that comes into being in the physical world now or 3 months now or 3 years, you spoke it into being. So what we need to begin to learn is to know that we have that authority to speak our lives into being. Now, this doesn't mean you get to have everything you want. It doesn't mean that things turn out exactly the way you think they should, but that the essence of what you would like to experience at a heart level, you can absolutely speak into being. And so rather than just play around with intentions, saying, well, maybe it could happen, to think, how do I get to that point of consciously speaking my world into being today? And again, we have all had instances of this throughout our lives. So we have all had frustrating circumstances where it seemed like we just couldn't get everyone on board to do. And I really want to do this. And it just seems, and to the point that you just get tired of the mayhem. And energetically, and some of these times, you made a shift and you said, no, this is what's going to happen. Get your parent voice. This is what's going to happen. We're going to do this now. And I'm not a parent, but I'm seeing parents in here. Like after all the mayhem and the kids running amok, it's like, no, this is what we're going to do. And usually when you take that tone of voice, your kids are like, oh, the jig's up. We have to do that. Like I said, my father used to have that Hannibal Lecter look. It was like, oh, no messing around anymore. We're really just going to do that. So to come to that point of resolution that this is what's going to happen energetically. So let's look at a couple ways to do that. I mean, we do it spontaneously, and I came across two really interesting ways of how to do that this week in the different material I read and listen to online. One is available a couple times a day for brief times, and the other one you can do at any time. Sound interesting? So anyway, so I was watching All Worlds Exist on YouTube. I just want to tell you. You can get deep spiritual teachers, and you can learn how to fix your toilet on the same day. It all is there. And I go to YouTube for all of those things. But anyway, so this was really fascinating. This man who is a therapist, but he also works in the realm of healing people spiritually. And he uses, as one of his tools, hypnotism. Now, first of all, when he talked, he says, I know what you think about hypnotism. It's like you go to the comedy club, and the guy puts you under and makes you bark like a dog in front of everybody and embarrass you. He says, that's what I'm not talking about. He says, what is amazing is that when you go to sleep and when you wake up in the morning, there is kind of a twilight period where you are perfectly balanced and focused and open to new ideas. And he said that what he does as a hypnotist, as part of his therapy, is to bring people to that twilight moment where they are open and can't say, I'm not able to do that sort of thing. And not to make people do what they don't want to do, but to bring a place to plant an idea that they want to plant in their lives. So part of what he recommends for his patients is that in the morning to realize, as I wrote in my blog this week, that as you kind of, you're waking up, what's going on, where am I, you are speaking your world into being for that day. I mean, think about it. You wake up, and for a few seconds, do you even know who you are? And it's like things start to come back online. You know what I mean? It's like the first thing online for me is like what day it is, because if it's Sunday, that means I really need to get out of bed now. If it's any other day, I can whatever. But as you notice that as your world comes online again, if there's something you are looking forward to, it's like, oh, I can't believe it's that day, I get to do that. And if there's something on your calendar that you have dreaded, you go, oh, can I get out of it? And you'll have a little dread. It's like, oh. You are creating your world into being in that twilight moment and setting the stage for the day from the intentions that you just instantly spoke your word with. It's like, oh, I have that thing at 2 o'clock in my calendar that I don't want to do. I have just spoken dread and anxiety into being. We all do it. Or that thing I've been looking forward to in months happens today at noon. I have spoken joy and great anticipation in being just as I open my eyes. We all do this. So his feeling was that those precious moments are great moments to speak the world into being that you want to experience. And I don't necessarily mean of going somewhere, having something, or doing something, but the essence of what you want to experience. So let's say the 2 o'clock appointment that you dread comes to your mind, says you can speak into being that. In spite of that, I speak my word of truth of great joy and balance and peace into being for my life today. To override what you were on your way of doing. And these are precious moments. I know, it just goes by quickly. So it's like by the time I figured out what I'm supposed to do, I'm awake and have a cup of coffee. So you've missed it. So again, start to notice as you drift off at night, as you wake up in the morning, those precious moments where you're coming back online, and to consciously use the words, I speak my life into being for this day. And I speak the qualities of joy, unconditional love, great peace and understanding. Or my newest one, I think I said this yesterday, another YouTube teacher of mine said that one of their greatest intentions that they state is that I accept the outcome that is not only the best for all, but is the most benevolent for all. Doesn't that kind of cover it? The most benevolent outcome for all. So again, if you're having that stressed out appointment or something, most benevolent outcome for all. How powerful is that to, in those twilight moments, to speak your word and claim? It's amazing. So here's a longer version for when you've had your coffee or woken up and you really don't want to go to that 2 o'clock appointment. In fact, you are pre-playing that 2 o'clock appointment in your head. You all do it. You are replaying your dread. You're playing possibly anger or anxiety. You are envisioning in your mind the conversation that's going to take and how you're going to even get the better of them in this conversation. We all do it, don't we? And then when we finished it and we're done and we're like lost our breath because we're so anxiety-ridden and angry, what do? We repeat it again just to see if we can get a deeper level of anger or anxiety, and we run it again and again and again. In a sense, you are speaking, not only are you speaking your world into being, you are setting it in concrete. You are going over it again. We all do this again and again, and imagining the worst case scenario and how terrible it will be. So imagine that you are a movie director. You know how to do that because we see it on TV all the time. So if you were dreading this certain thing happening and you were having this loop of this terrible situation in your mind, experience it once. Let it be the worst that it can be. The nastiest, the angry, most angry. And when you're to that point that you are going to reloop it, again, you're a director on TV, say cut. Talk to the main character, you. How did that go for you? Did you get out of this what you had hoped for? Chances are the answer is no. Okay, what is it that you would like to get as opposed to what you got in take one? And be honest with yourself. Chew on it a little bit. Go to take 2. Run it again with a different idea of how it should go. Hopefully it will go a little bit better, but it might not be perfect yet. In fact, don't make it go better just for the sake of it. You can say, oh yeah, I healed it in one time. Run it a few times. Take 2. Who's the main character? Me. Did that go better? It did a little bit, but I'm still just really so angry at this person I can't believe. Cut. Take 3. Take 4. Take 30. Whatever it takes to, in a sense, get you to a point that you experience this at a level that has its most benevolent outcome. And how do you know that? Here's the trick. You will realize in this drama you're running in your head, the only person that needs to have their behavior changed is you. In the first few takes, you were concentrating on the other characters in the drama. If they would only show up differently, my life would be so much easier. But when you make it to not only cut, but print, isn't that how they do that on TV? Print it. It's done. Like I said, all the movies do it like that. That means that you have come to the most benevolent outcome where you have only changed yourself and allowed the other characters to be who they were and knew that actually, even if they wanted to go nuts, they can't really affect you and what you're doing. It's all about you. So these are 2 great ways. One, really quickly in the morning, but in that process of retakes, you are speaking your world into existence, speaking your word, and you are doing it consciously. And notice that, so play with this at least once this week. I know, we're all busy at summer, it's crazy, blah, 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 blah. But there's got to be one story in your head this week that you'd like to get rid of. There's got to be at least one. And play with this. And notice, first of all, how you feel as it progresses. And when we say this sentence, I speak my word of truth and consciously create, how powerful that line is when you get to that final iteration of the story you've been running through your head. Not only will you believe it, it will be so grounded in spiritual truth that it can't help but take place in your life. Guaranteed. And I'm not saying a particular circumstances will take place, but your greater intention within it for a most benevolent outcome for all. At that point, you will have taken off all the brakes, all the tethers, and you will let it run its course in an amazing way, and you have spoken it very powerful into being. It may seem like a lot to get to a point, doesn't it? But the more you consciously do that, and it gets shorter, instead of 40 takes, you may 2 or 3. It's developing a new habit. It's getting over our anxiety and anger more quickly. It's getting to the truth and core of what you would like to create more quickly, more sooner, more soon, and just to know that when you do, I mean, there is that what I call inner click. I'm speaking my word into being right now, and this great truth that I've had a realization of as I've let everything else go. The reason why we fall into, I can't promise, but I try, because there's all that other stuff hanging on. Once you get rid of all that stuff, you're speaking your world into being very clearly, very easily. So I just want to close today. My new, not new, but my, as of late, Science of Mind 365, I've been reading. And here's the reading for August 18th. It says, my word accomplishes. You are either attracting or repelling according to your mental attitudes. You are either identifying yourself with lack or with abundance, with love and friendship or with indifference. You cannot keep from attracting into your experience that which corresponds to the sum total of your states of consciousness. This law of attraction and repulsion works automatically. It is like the law of reflection. The reflection corresponds to the image held before a mirror. Life is a mirror peopled with the forms of your own acceptance. How careful, then, you should be to guard your thoughts, not only seeing to it that you keep them from doubt and fear, accepting only the good, but equally, you should consciously repel every thought that denies that good. So there's a little prayer here. So let's go within, and I'll just read this prayer. And again, anyone at home, if you want a copy of this, email me. I know that my word penetrates any unbelief in my mind. It casts out fear, removes doubt, clears away obstacles, permitting that which is enduring, perfect, and true to be realized. I have complete faith and acceptance that all the statements I make will be carried out as I have believed. I do everything with a sense of reliance upon the law of good. Therefore, I know that my word shall not be returned unto me void. I accept this word and rejoice in it. I expect complete and perfect results from it. Let's just be silent for a few moments. And from this moment, we consciously speak our world into being. And so it is.